Okay, this video is a supplement to section 54 and 55. I want to do a little separate video where I respond more personally and more directly to the poem. In the other videos, I try to say what I think the poem means, what I think Tennyson was trying to get across. And this video is a little different than that, so I'm pulling it out, doing it separate. Tennyson's wish in 54, "Oh, yet we trust that somehow good will be the final goal of ill, that nothing walks with aimless feet, that not one life shall be destroyed or cast as rubbish to the void." This is a sweet and a wonderful hope. Tennyson's hoping that good things aren't going to be held in exclusion for the few that by luck or chance or their parents good, or the fact that they have enough money to afford good teaching, or that you know these blessed few are the only ones that are going to be able to enjoy, or they were born in the right place. Or Tennyson hopes that God's plan is big enough and good enough for even those of us that really struggle. And as I mentioned before, in 55, he says, "I faintly trust the larger hope." Tennyson's son tells us that when Tennyson refers to the larger hope, what he means is that the whole human race would, through perhaps ages of suffering, be at length purified and saved. Tennyson hopes that God's love, God's grace, God's mercy is enough, even for those of us that are just stubborn and selfish and addicted and broken. Fyodor Dostoevsky, the Russian author, has a similar, he makes a similar, his is a critique. It's in his book, Brothers Karamazov, in the chapter called The Grand Inquisitor. Through the voice of the Grand Inquisitor, he's kind of grilling Christ. Christ is there, almost captive of the Inquisitor. And the Inquisitor says, "What good is your plan if the only people who get blessed from it are those very few who are able to shuck off the world and exclude themselves out in the deserts and spend their days fasting and praying? What about the rest of us that are stuck in the scrum and the mud and the muck of life? We're trying to pay the mortgage, we're raising kids, we're struggling with employment and struggling. What about those of us who are trying to live life?" And the Inquisitor says, if your plan is only good enough for those few blessed souls, it's not a very good plan. Tennyson doesn't take quite that aggressive of an approach, but the poet captures here this really wonderful feeling for the people. To me, Tennyson is he's acting as voice for the people, expressing, faintly trusting this larger hope that God has good things in store, even for those of us who are broken and really kind of screwing things up. The poet voices the concern and the hope. And just a few years before Tennyson wrote these words. And as poet, let me go back here. Let's see, I lost my place. As poet, he knows that he doesn't have the authority to proclaim God's will. He knows that he doesn't know. He even says that, "Behold, we know not anything. I can but trust that good shall fall at last to all." As poet, he has a hope. He says, "But what am I, an infant crying in the night, an infant crying for the light, with no language but a cry, but better language than I could come up with." A few years before the poet expressed this concern so beautifully, across the Atlantic, a man who I hold was a prophet spoke to this very same concern. The man's name was Joseph Smith. In 1832, he had a vision. His followers called it the vision. He had it along with one of his friends, Sidney Rigdon, where he saw that even the very most wicked of us have a chance through suffering, through great and prolonged suffering, to accept Christ. And that as we accept Christ, we have a chance to be saved. Here's a part of his vision. For all the rest, except a very few who refuse, they will not accept Christ, even after great and prolonged suffering. For all the rest shall be brought forth by the resurrection of the dead, through the triumph and the glory of the Lamb who was slain, who was in the bosom of the Father before the worlds were made. And this is the gospel, the glad tidings which the voice out of the heavens bore record unto us, that he came into the world, even Jesus, to be crucified for the world, and to bear the sins of the world, and to sanctify the world, and to cleanse it from all unrighteousness, that through him all might be saved, whom the Father had put into his power and made by him, who glorifies the Father and saves all the works of his hands. A few years later, nearly 100 years later, the nephew of that first prophet spoke again with prophetic authority, and he said this: "The dead who repent will be redeemed through obedience to the ordinances of the house of God, and after they have paid the penalty of their transgressions and are washed clean, shall receive a reward according to their works, for they are heirs of salvation." So what I would tell Tennyson is, your larger hope is true. It's real. You, the poet, expressed so beautifully the hopes and fears of humanity. The prophet spoke a few years before, and then another few years later, with authority. They saw in vision that your larger hope, Tennyson, is true. Through ages of suffering, all of us who choose will have the opportunity to be redeemed through Jesus Christ, through his love, mercy. This is the good news. Not one soul is destroyed or cast as rubbish to the void. God has good things in store for all of us, no matter our upbringing, no matter where we were born or our circumstances. This is the good news. This is hope through Jesus Christ.